Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. Now, we're going to spend some time now talking about a variety of topics expected to come up during the General Assembly. And joining us now are Democratic Representative El-Mahdi Hali of Stockbridge and the AJC's Georgia government reporter, Mark Nesi. Thanks for both coming here. We've got lots to cover. And Representative Hali, I want to start with you, showing a video of you and Representative Clint Crow that you posted on Instagram.
Hey everybody. Hey everyone. I'm El-Mahdi Hali, State Representative for House District 116.
And I'm Clint Crow, State Representative for House District 118.
And I am the chair and
I'm the vice chair
of the Henry County Legislative Delegation. So even though, yes, I am a Democrat
and I am a Republican,
we actually can work together to get some really good things done for our county. But we definitely need your prayers and your support as we work in this new year.
And let us know what we can do to help serve you as your representatives at the county.
Great job. Like Thank TikTok you. Stars now or something like that, and Instagram stars. So I do want to know, did you have to practice a lot? No?
Actually,
no.
You know, when you're running for office, it definitely gives you a lot of practice before you get in front of a camera.
I bet. Let's talk about some of the issues that you will be getting together with in a bipartisan manner in Henry County, the second largest, fastest growing county in the state. So there's some big issues.
Yeah, it's a lot of big issues. I think even over the summer, I believe we may have even eclipsed Gwinnett in terms of the fastest growing. Not the population size, but certainly there's a lot of growth. I think if you travel on I-75, whether you're leaving or going, I jokingly tell folks, you will stop in Henry County. But fortunately, we see that across the board, there's a lot of positive push to make sure that we have expansive roadways, to make sure that we have a level of mobility that's available for everyone. Because we know that, when you stand in traffic, when you're sitting there in front of a stoplight, that stop sign, a stoplight does not care what party you're in. You're just going to be sitting. But we understand as well that we have a lot of economic opportunities coming through Henry County because we are literally like a one-day drop-off from the Port of Savannah. And because there's so much infrastructure needing to be built there to be able to accommodate the people who are coming in, we realize that is going to be an all-hands-on-deck need, and that is going to require a lot of participation from either party.
Yeah, so I love the fact that you see legislative delegations come together, and you guys have. So, Mark, I want to turn to you for some issues that may spark some disagreements on this side. The AJC surveyed Georgians on their priorities as legislators craft new laws in the state. And let's start with how the poll was conducted briefly. Who was polled?
So the AJC contracts with the University of Georgia to conduct the poll. I believe this one was somewhere in the neighborhood of 830 registered voters, a combination of landline and cell phones, and, just had people cold call them and get enough responses that created a representative sample.
And people who really want to talk about these issues. So now some specific areas. So one of them deals with housing, and tell us about the response you did. It was rental housing in particular, and the AJC has done some really good reports digging into the rental housing crisis in the state.
That's right. The poll showed that 90% of people who took the poll said that Georgia should have minimum standards for apartments and tenants and protections for people who live in apartments, because after the AJC series showed, it's called Dangerous Dwellings, it's about some of these apartments, about 250 apartment complexes that really are the worst, that really do seem to foster crime and poor living conditions, where you have apartments and residences where the landlords don't take care of their properties. And what happens then? You have people living in poverty, and then that attracts crime, and it creates this cycle that does make society and communities worse. So I think there is a recognition among Georgia voters that perhaps it's time to do something about it.
Yeah, so we may see something this session. I want to ask you about Henry County, just briefly. You guys have a moratorium right now on just building townhomes and apartments and all, not because of dangerous situations, but just because of growth, right?
Well, it's because of growth, and I believe that a lot of residents understand that because we have compacted roadways, and oftentimes that is it's really creating a problem because when you have exceeding amount of people coming in, you have growth that is rapidly taking shape, that is going to put more people onto the roadways. And even granted, when you have strong economic development in the area, in the place of being able to create more apartments and townhomes, people often don't think about the influx of cars that are going to be on our roadways. And so I believe that this new measure was really our county commission saying, hey, let's just pause it for a while until we're able to match with the development that our roadways need. But I think, when I look back just for the previous session, I remember a bipartisan bill that was actually co-sponsored by the current vice chair of the Henry County local delegation, Representative Clint Crow, of House Bill 1405, which allowed for zoning restrictions, some reforms there, to allow for not only that home rule, that doctrine that allows for public hearings to make sure that we look at those zoning restrictions in place so that we can provide opportunities for affordable housing. That's something that it did get passed, but we just want to see that it's going to allow for people to have all eyes on how we do our zoning restrictions and making sure that we have affordable housing available for people.
Okay, I want to switch gears now to something else in your poll, runoff elections. What did people say?
So most Georgia voters who were surveyed want runoff elections to end in some form for general elections altogether. Now, we didn't ask how they would end, and there are a lot of options for doing that. It could be plurality wins, it could be ranked choice voting, it could be whoever gets the most votes is who's elected. But 58% of voters in our survey said they've had enough of runoff elections. We've had so many, especially in recent elections, and it just causes a drawn-out campaign, and most of the time, the candidate who was winning in the first election wins the runoff anyway.
And there's this fatigue with going to the polls a lot. Let's get another one in real quick. Budget surplus and what to do about it. What did people say?
Right. It's really interesting. We had a $6.6 billion surplus in the 2022 fiscal year in Georgia. So what are we going to do with that money? What we found is that almost 50% of voters would rather the money be spent on things like education and healthcare rather than tax rebates, which came in around 41%, which is compelling. Most of the time when the government has extra money, you hear taxpayers say, well, that's our money, give some of it back to us. And I think a lot of voters do want that, but there's also a recognition of the need for more funding for things like health and education.
Okay, let's talk about gambling, sports betting in particular. You asked about that, right?
Yes, sports betting will be an issue this session, 49%, not quite a majority, but more wanted it to be allowed than not. I think it was 49 to 41% thereabout wanted sports betting to be legal in Georgia. That is down from the last time we polled on this issue, but still more people than not would prefer that sports betting is legal in Georgia.
Yeah, it's always some information for you who are down at the Capitol making these decisions.
Absolutely.
Not always going to agree across the aisle, though.
We find that actually most people just really don't know that for the most of our legislation around, maybe I would say, roughly about 80% of it, we actually agree on. I think just overall, our society is very focused on seeing the tensions between people, the dramatic sensation of
what
it.
we're seeing in Washington more.
Exactly. And what I try to tell people is that, our government that is so closely associated with your local taxes that you pay is your state government.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of priorities that we have.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it at that because we're going to have to wrap it up. I want to thank you both for being here. So thank you for coming on the show. And it does it for lawmakers, but we return tomorrow for day 7 of the Georgia legislative session, and GPB will carry Governor Brian Kemp's State of the State address live tomorrow beginning at 11 a.m. on your GPB radio station. Live stream it on gpb.org. We'll also broadcast the Democratic response later in the day. And in case you miss it, tune in tomorrow night here for our 1-hour-long special edition of Lawmakers where we'll replay everything. See you later. Bye-bye.